Hello and welcome back to Gravity Falls. I'm here with Fear, and today we're going to build Old Man McGucket's mission to gather the parts he needs to build the Gobblewonker, which is the Gravity Falls equivalent of the Loch Ness Monster, except that it's just a robot. It isn't real. Anyway, this mission is a prequel of sorts to the second episode of the TV series, The Legend of the Gobblewonker, in which Old Man McGucket creates a robot version of the legendary monster to get his son's attention. In my toy box, the old man asks the players to help him gather the parts for it. It's a fairly basic collection quest that's designed to get players to explore the toy box. I've built similar quests in some of my other toy boxes, like Atlantis, Coco, and Fantasia, so you may have seen this before, but I'll show you how to do it again for this toy box. Now, to save a little time, I've already placed the creativity toys that I'm going to need, so let's go over those really quick. So I have two locators up here near the bait shop. I have a dynamic trigger, a logic gate, and a friendly wave generator, and we're going to use those to put Old Man McGucket in dynamically, like we did with Stan last time. And then to make him a mission giver, we have a radar marker, another dynamic trigger, and a text displayer. For the mission itself, we have a replayer, a collectible tracker, and another dynamic trigger and a radar marker, which will show them where to come after they've collected everything. And then for the Gobblewonker, I've placed a locator out here in the middle of the lake, along with an effects generator and another replayer. And we just give you an idea of exactly where that locator is placed. So there's the toys that we need mostly for this quest, and we'll put the others down with the replayers when we get there. So the first thing we'll do is we need to put in our townsperson that we're going to use for the mission giver. And I've already configured the wave for my friendly wave generator. And for my stand-in for Old Man McGucket, I'm using the prisoner hitchhiking ghost costume. He kind of looks like a crazy old man. So I like that. And for the properties on this, we'll take the generation delay to 0. All the rest of those are fine. And under the generated friend options, we'll set the behavior to stand still. Okay. Oh, and we also need to connect that up to the locator. And we're going to put him right here next to the bait shop. Now this dynamic trigger, we're going to connect up to that same locator. And for the properties on this, target needs to be the locator. And the trigger distance, I'm going to set this to be 40. So he needs to be within 10 blocks of this locator. The player needs to be within 10 blocks of this locator in order for him to appear. So fairly close. This is the same value we used last time. Alright, so when the player enters that area, let's do a new logic connection when entered by player any. We're going to input into our logic gate. This is the same thing we did last time. And on the logic gate, a new logic connection on output. Come over to the friendly wave generator and generate the wave. And that'll put the townsperson at that locator. And then we're going to go to the friendly wave generator and do a new logic connection. When the wave, actually let's do this like we did last time. When the first friend is generated, I think that goes out first. We want to turn around and connect up to the logic gate and close it, just to make sure there's no possibility for any second townsperson to be put in there, which again I don't think would happen. If we used a friend generator it would, but okay, so on the dynamic trigger then, a new logic connection when exited by player any. So when they leave that 10 block radius around that locator, we're going to go direct to the friendly wave generator and defeat the wave. And on the friendly wave generator, new logic connection. When the wave is defeated, we'll reopen the logic gate. Alright, so that puts our townsperson into the toy box. And again, it saves memory because townspeople, enemies, critters, vehicles, and mounts, all of those take up a lot of memory. So if you can avoid having them in your toy box and only put them in when you need them, that's the better way to go. Okay, to set him up as a mission giver, we'll come to our radar marker and we'll do a new locator connection. And we'll connect that up to the locator. And I'm doing that instead of connecting to the friendly wave generator because I want that radar marker to be on even if the townsperson isn't in the toy box. If that townsperson hasn't been generated yet, I'd still like the radar marker to show because that would tell the player who's on perhaps the other side of the toy box that there is something over here. So under the properties for the radar marker, the beacon type, a yellow exclamation point, location needs to be the locator, and I want this active by default when you come into the toy box. And by connecting it to the locator, you can see the beacon is on. If we connected it up to this, you wouldn't see that beacon right now because the townsperson doesn't exist in the toy box. Alright, on this dynamic trigger, I'm going to do a new locator connection and connect that one up to the same locator. And for the properties on this, again, the target has to be the locator. And for the trigger distance on this one, I'm going to set it pretty tight again, so 4, which is a 1 block radius around that locator. And we want the player to have to walk up that close to talk to him to start the mission. And on the text displayer, text duration 4, text style will be proposal. And again, any player can accept or reject the proposal. Okay, so to kick off the mission, when the player comes up and approaches the townsperson, that'll trigger this dynamic trigger. So we want to do a new logic connection when entered by player any. We're going to come over to our text displayer, and once again we'll go all the way down to the missions category. And he's going to say, "Can I ask you a favor?" And then the mission will be kicked off when the player accepts. So on the text displayer, a new logic connection. When the text proposal is accepted, we'll come over to the radar marker and deactivate it. And a new logic connection. When the text proposal is accepted, we'll come over to the dynamic trigger and turn that off because we only want to see that text one time. Okay, and then this also needs to start the actual mission. So to do that, we have a few more toys we need to set up. So first of all, let's come over to our collectible tracker. This is going to keep track of the parts that we're going to pick up. So under the properties, I'm going to leave the collectible type as all because I'm going to use a mix of collectibles, and these will be the only collectibles that I'm using in this toy box. And I definitely want to see them on the radar. That'll help the player find them. For the replayer, we'll use this to put down the collectibles. So I want to take the playback interval to 0 so they show up immediately. And then let's come out of the editor here. And we'll step on the replayer, which opens the menu in the lower right. On my Wii U, which is what I play on, which everybody keeps asking me what I play on. I think I mentioned this in almost every episode, at least the ones I use a replayer. I'm going to hit B to record, and then I need to step off to get back into the editor. And for the collectibles, I'm going to use 2 collectibles primarily, the Gears collectible and the Lightning Bolt collectible. I could use this one as well, but I don't want to use a wide variety of these because I want to save memory. And the idea here now is to scatter some of these around the toy box. You want the player to have to go exploring. So we might stick one out hiding behind this stump. And you'll notice the memory on the right jumped. So we can't place a lot of these. We have to be very careful how many of these we place. But we'll place another one out here on this little peak. Maybe down in this clearing. We'll put a bolt back out here, kind of hiding back here. And it doesn't quite matter where you place these. You can put them anywhere you want in your toy box. You just want to scatter them around and make the player have to wander to find them. I'm going to put this one up here on this ledge behind the mystery shack. About as close as I can get it. Maybe off the corner over here. So like that. Switch back to the gears collectible. I'm definitely watching my memory there over on the right to make sure I don't go too far with this. So we can put one up here on the top of that stump. We can hide one here in the graveyard. Like that. I will avoid the gnome forest for right now. We could stick one up on top of the Dusk to Dawn store. Anywhere you like, basically. Maybe behind Greasy's Diner. But you get the idea. Let's see, where else might I want to put one? Maybe out over here in the woods. This is kind of a good little spot to hide one. I think that's enough. You get the idea. Alright, so now that we've placed those, we'll come back to the replayer, step on it, and I press B again to stop recording, and A to clear. And be careful only to press A one time, because if you press it multiple times, you'll corrupt your replayer. And as you can see, that took the collectibles back out. And I'm only going to use one replayer for this episode. If you're interested, you can hook up a randomizer to several replayers, and you could make this. I'm going to have this invoke the replayer directly, but you could have this run through a randomizer and have the randomizer randomly select a replayer, and that would basically randomize where those things come from. And each replayer, you'd do what I just did with this one, but you'd put the objects down, the collectibles down in a different location so that you never know exactly where they would be selected. And that's a useful thing to do. I'm not going to show you how to do that in this episode because I've showed you how to do that before in my Random Dungeons episode. I think it was number 10. And also Toy Box Tutorials number 59 where I talked about the randomizer. So you can look at either of those episodes to see how you would do that. But for today, I'm just going to use the one. Alright, so to finish, well, let's go ahead and finish hooking everything else up, and then we'll hook up the mission. So after they've collected all the collectibles, I want them to have to return to this location. And so for that, we're going to need another dynamic trigger that I've dropped here, so we'll do a new locator connection. Connect that up to this locator. And for the properties on this, again, the target needs to be the locator. And the trigger distance, I'm going to set this once again to be 4. So a 1 block radius around that. And we're going to need a radar marker to direct them there. So we'll connect that radar marker up to the same locator. And under the properties, for the beacon type, I'm going to use a yellow ring. The beacon location will be the locator. And I want this off by default, which it already is, so that's good. And then after they return to this location, I want to put the Gobblewonker in and end the mission. So to do that, we need another replayer. So we'll set the properties on this to take the playback interval to 0. Once again, I'll come out of the editor. We'll step on this replayer, and I'll press B to start recording, step off to get back in the editor. And the Gobblewonker is down in Building Sets Group 7. And you need to have the Toy Box Speedway game to unlock him. And if you have that, and you've unlocked him, he'll be here. If you haven't unlocked him and you want to know how to do that, I'm not going to show you. You can go to infinityguru.com. That will show you how to unlock him. So there we've placed him, and then I'll exit out. Once again, we'll step on that replayer. Pretty sensitive there. Press B to stop recording and A to clear. And then to kind of cover up his sudden appearance, we have the effects generator here. So I'm going to connect that up to this locator. And having this locator down ahead of time, before you put the Gobblewonker in here, is helpful. Because then that locator is useful to determine the effects location and where you want to place the Gobblewonker. Alright, so to finish off the quest, or to start the quest rather, we come to the text displayer. New logic connection when the text proposal is accepted. We want to come over to our replayer and do a playback. And that will put the collectibles into the toy box. And because the property on this is set to show them on the radar, they're already on the radar, then we don't need another radar marker for all of those. And then after the player, or as the player collects those, this toy will keep track of it. So on the collectible tracker, we'll do a new logic connection. When the final collectible is collected, then we're going to come over to this dynamic trigger, and we're going to turn this on. And I want this off by default when you come in the toy box. So once again, we'll come over to our level starter that we put down a while back at the Mystery Shack. Do a new logic connection on Catalyze. Then we'll come back over to that dynamic trigger and turn it off. Okay. And on the collectible tracker, new logic connection when the final collectible is collected. We want to turn on this radar marker to direct the player back to this point, because they're bringing the parts back to the old man. Okay. And then once the player arrives here, we'll put the Gobblewonker in and end the quest. So on this dynamic trigger, we do a new logic connection when entered by player any. First thing we'll do is come over and deactivate the radar marker at that spot, because we don't need that anymore. And when that radar marker is deactivated, we should turn off the dynamic trigger, because we only want to do this behavior once. And on the dynamic trigger, a new logic connection when it's entered by player any. We're going to come over to our effects generator. We're going to play one time the spark burst. And on the dynamic trigger, a new logic connection when entered by player any. We're going to come over to this replayer and do a playback, and that will put the Gobblewonker into the toy box. And then we'll do our standard end of mission tasks. So on the dynamic trigger, new logic connection, when entered by player any, we'll come over to our sound effect generator. And under the musical category, we're going to play the fanfare, which again is the standard little musical flourish that I like to play when a mission is done. And lastly, on that dynamic trigger, a new logic connection, when entered by player any. Go back over to the Mystery Shack, to the Action Enforcer, and we'll have all the players celebrate. All right. Okay, with that, I believe we are all set to go. So in order to test this, I'm going to need to save my game, and I'm going to go ahead and exit out of the toy box and come back in, and that will have that level starter disable that dynamic trigger over here. So I'm going to do that, and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, I am back, and I've saved my game and reloaded my toy box. So now let's head on over to our mission giver, and you can see that he appeared in the toy box, and when we run away he goes out, so that's working. And if we run over to this locator, that trigger area, the dynamic trigger is turned off, so that's good. So nothing happens there, which shouldn't. But we'll come up to our mission giver. He says, "Can I ask you a favor?" And we'll say continue. And now on the radar in the lower left corner, there's a whole bunch of yellow dots. So now we can run around and pick all of these things up. And to save a little bit of time, let's just go ahead and use Spark Mode to help us do that. So there's one. I think I put the second one over here. Yep. Third one I placed over here behind the trees. Next one I placed over at the Mystery Shack. And to get up to that ledge, we need to hit the basement here, the door, and that drops us up here. Okay, so we got that one. Next one was over here behind the trees on the top of this stump. Like that. There's another one behind Greasy's Diner. There's another one up on top of Dusk to Dawn. I thought that was a pipe climb. Alright, so there's that one. Another one at the cemetery. And you can see why it's a good idea to have the locations of these randomized a little bit, because when you know where they are, it's very predictable. So I know where I placed them all. So if you give the game some options and connect a randomizer up to it, then even you as the creator won't necessarily know where they are. But again, I've shown you how to do that in other videos, so I won't show you how to do that here. Alright, so that was the last collectible, and now we have a new radar marker, as you can see, out here by the bait house, the bait shop. And as we approach that...
And that's the kind of surprise I like.
And there's the Gobblewonker. That should make him quake in his boots. So that's the last mission I have for this toy box. Next time I'll add the final touches to it, including Gideon and his goons, and the climbing tower at the Mystery Fair. Before you go, don't forget to stop by my blog, where you'll find a logic diagram to help you build this quest in your own toy box. The link is in the video description. Also, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, just click my photo in the lower right corner of this video. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.